Sound the alarm, folks. There are new enemies inbound, and today I talk about how probable is the possibility of Darth Vader actually encountering one of these enemies in the following comic issues that are coming in the Darth Vader comic series 2020, now 2021. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Star Wars just introduced a completely new species and a new enemy in Star Wars The High Republic issue number 4. This new species is called the DRENGIR. Now, set aside the fact that Darth Vader has just landed on EXEGOL, and in about 2 weeks we're going to see what actually happens to Darth Vader on EXEGOL, what he finds out about Palpatine's Sith Citadel and secret laboratory that will come into play 30 plus years later in The Rise of Skywalker. So even though we don't see the DRENGIR in The Rise of Skywalker, it completely makes sense that Palpatine would align himself with this species, because believe it or not, they are rooted from the dark side of the Force. Even if Vader does not encounter them on EXEGOL, I truly believe that it would be spectacular to connect this species with Darth Vader 200 years later, because the High Republic takes place 200 years before the Phantom Menace, give or take. And now during Imperial times, about 20 some odd years, the timeline would come about 220 something years later, would be perfect for Darth Vader to face this dark side abomination. So let's talk about the DRENGIR. Star Wars has just revealed that the ancient Sith had a very sinister ally. The DRENGIR are a race of plant creatures who are strong with the dark side of the Force, and they were imprisoned by the Sith for untold millennia. Curiously enough though, as dangerous as the DRENGIR may be, all historical records of their existence seem to have been erased, as though the Jedi became so afraid of them they erased every trace of their existence. Sound familiar? Well, the Jedi did the same thing with the bleeding of the Kyber crystals. There is a tendency here that pops up every now and then. We realize that whatever the Jedi were afraid of, they just erased it from existence and never talked about it again. As a matter of fact, as proof that Darth Vader will somehow or another face the DRENGIR in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic series, which takes place a decade or so before the sequel trilogy. In the Rise of Kylo Ren series, Snoke is sequestered aboard the DRENGIR space station. You might remember this botanical place where Ben Solo and Snoke first talk, and Snoke is kind of manipulating him into the dark side of the Force. They are surrounded by DRENGIR. So this space station here and the fact that Snoke is here tells you that Palpatine and Vader had somehow or another been in contact with the DRENGIR. From some of these comic pages in the High Republic issue number 4, it reveals some of the history of the DRENGIR and the Sith. Their story dates back to the early days of the Old Republic. A warrior race known as the Amexans refused to accept peace and instead left to explore the Outer Rim. The Amexans encountered the DRENGIR in the Outer Rim and attempted to wage war against them, using a space station to transport soldiers to the DRENGIR homeworld in hyperspace pods. But unfortunately, they had underestimated the DRENGIR, who instead wiped them out and claimed the Amexine technology for themselves. They named the space station the Great Progenitor because they could use its hyperspace pods to transport their seeds across the galaxy. You see, as with other plants, the DRENGIR spawned from seeds, taking root and growing to towering masses within just a couple of days of being planted. They had a voracious hunger. The ancient and twisted mounds of greenery perceived all other life forms as food, preferring to consume their victims alive. They were described as taking down a wampa with ease. They were capable of speaking Galactic Basic, and the species were able to heal from most wounds inflicted by blasters or lightsabers very quickly. One of the rare things that killed them was the exposure to the vacuum of space. When cut in half by a lightsaber, a single DRENGIR could survive with 2 bodies. This of course means that they were a multifunctional organism. The DRENGIR operated in a group. They shared a collective mind with other DRENGIR of the same group and completed each other's sentences like twins. The creatures persuaded sentient captives to join their collective consciousness, successfully doing so on those who were vulnerable to the influence of the dark side of the Force. You can now understand why I'm so enticed for Darth Vader to meet a DRENGIR. As the High Republic comics tend to explain, the DRENGIR are basically a botanical virus spreading all across and is basically unstoppable. It feeds on carbon life, it feeds on humans and other aliens alike, and as I just explained, they are particularly keen to people who are influenced by the dark side of the Force. Who is the perfect prey here if not Darth Vader? If he would come upon such a monster, then I believe it is Darth Vader who would put the final nail in their coffin. Darth Vader, with his cunning, skill, and intelligence, would not skip a beat against a DRENGIR. You see, a DRENGIR's motivation is not just to feed, but to expand as well. They would love for their seeds to be expanded throughout the universe. In a situation where Darth Vader with his fighter gets stuck somewhere, maybe on EXEGOL or maybe somewhere else, this would be the perfect opportunity for a DRENGIR to go up against Darth Vader. Not only for a DRENGIR to feed itself, but also to use Vader's transport some way, somehow, to get off-world and expand its seeds. The DRENGIR were not the only dark side power stirring in the Outer Rim. Of course, we know that, as ultimately they formed an alliance with the Sith. So the ancient Sith had a very buddy-buddy relationship with the DRENGIR. Another reason why a remnant of the DRENGIR could appear on EXEGOL or somewhere in the Sith worlds. Naturally, of course, it didn't take long before the two factions turned against each other. The Sith were shaken at the fact that they could not destroy the DRENGIR. The DRENGIR is basically indestructible as we have described it so far, and so what the Sith did is they placed dark side totems on the Great Progenitor, using Sith sorcery to send the DRENGIR into an enchanted slumber. That was during the Old Republic era. Now in the High Republic era, thousands of years later, a group of Jedi stumbled upon the space station and removed the totems, believing they needed to be cleansed from the dark side of the Force. But this, in turn, woke up the DRENGIR, who had been unleashed upon the galaxy once again. And so this is the biggest issue right now, is that if the Sith could not deal with the DRENGIR and had to basically use Sith alchemy to just make them fall into a coma for 1,000 years, how will the Jedi fare off against them now that issue number 4 has reintroduced them into the galaxy? Again, we don't know what the High Republic series has in store for the DRENGIR, but I would love it if one or two of them survived somehow, because it seems like the DRENGIR just cannot be killed. They can possibly be stopped or imprisoned, but not totally wiped out completely. So it stands to reason that they survived past the High Republic era and into the Imperial, if not the Final Order era. Although I doubt it, because again, if Darth Vader comes upon them, then I think the DRENGIR will meet their end. This has been shown time and time again. Just consider the Sith Lord Momin. He had kind of the same fate. He was wiped out of existence. He had survived for a long time until he came upon Darth Vader, who destroyed him completely. So yeah, it would be a lot of fun to see Darth Vader go up against a DRENGIR. I obviously can say that Darth Vader will win that battle, but how do you think Darth Vader will fare against DRENGIR? And will he be able to wipe them out completely? Talk to me down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you until then.